Are you a team manager struggling to lead your team well? Have you been asked to lead HR, but it's your first time? Or are you an HR pro looking for your tribe? While We Were Working is the show for you. With quick tips and tough topics in 30 minutes or less, the Jumpstart HR team is here for you. So let's get into it. Hey, welcome to this episode of While We Were Working. I believe this is episode five. Five. Summer, do you have the hang of it yet? Are we feeling pretty good about episodes so far?
I'd say so, Joey. And it's our holiday special edition episode today. So there is an extra reason to be excited today.
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the reasons to be excited is our outfits. Um,
Woo!
Wait, did you plan to wear that? Because I just kind of threw this on, so we must have. It looks like we coordinated. Okay, lie. We did coordinate this. We don't
It's
always look like this.
yeah. I'm just amused, Joey, that they're actually both candy cane themed. So we're spot on today. We need to find a way to do this more often.
I think so. We need to just find a couple holidays, find some ugly sweaters or blazers, and just go for it. For those who are, I think some of you're a bit of an influencer. So where might someone find your outfit, or is it custom?
Oh my, Joey, put me on the spot. Well, this beautiful creation can be found at your local Target. This time of year, as you know, they're pretty darn popular. So the available selection's pretty slim. But I was fortunate enough to find this gem of it's like a ugly sweater dress. I don't know if you can see it, but there's this applique like rockin' gingerbread on it,
Oh, nice.
and I don't know, the candy cane theme just was so tacky, it screamed, "Take me." So here I am. How about you, Joey? Where do you find a candy cane blazer at?
So I've had this for a couple years now, and I wish I still had the piece where like you turn this knob and it actually has Christmas lights on it. But I got it from Ross, and I feel like Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, that's where that's where ugly sweaters go to be great. So if you're looking for some, if you've got a holiday party and you haven't snagged it, check out Summer's recommendation for Target or Ross, where I got this beauty from. And yeah, so what's our high low buffalo this week?
Well, just to do a quick recap for those that this may be their first episode joining, we do High Low Buffalo not only on our show, but we do it within our Jumpstart team. It's every Friday on our Slack channels. And we ask our team to share out their high, their low, and their buffalo, which is just something random with the team. And it's a great way to support your team members, celebrate their wins, and oftentimes learn some very interesting, fun facts. So let's go ahead and kick it off, Joey. I'll go first.
All right, go for it.
So, of course, the holiday coming around. I'm super excited. My high hasn't happened yet, but it will tomorrow. I have family coming into town, and that's always such a great thing to be surrounded by family and those you care so much about. And with that, Joey, I don't have any lows, so it's going to be a really great week. But I do have a really interesting buffalo that I'd love to share with you.
All right, what's that buffalo?
So, Joey, when you were younger, did you ever watch the Muppets?
I did. I did watch the
Okay.
Muppets, and I try to
o-
get my kids to relive my childhood. So I always make them watch stuff. But
Okay. And I have to ask, are you a fan of Yoda as well?
I'm not as much a Star Wars fan, but I see like Baby Yoda and all that. So I'm not, but there's still time.
Okay, so the fun fact here, Joey, which I found was was really interesting, was that they were actually voiced by the same person, by puppeteer Frank Oz. And when I learned that, my mind was totally blown because it's just like, wait, they're so opposite.
They are.
Uh,
Wait. Yoda is like He speaks another language, right?
Right, right. Well, yes, formulates some, some really like interesting sentences. And then, of course, Miss Piggy has like that really high voice.
Hmm.
So when I thought about that, I was like, wow, I don't know that I could have made the connection otherwise, but certainly a great talent in a puppeteer to be able to play two extremely different character voices.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't think many people knew that. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd poll the audience to see who knew that. For those who are tuning in or on podcast, just tag us and let us know if you knew that was true. I think there's another, like the guy who does or the person who does Bart Simpson.
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch of voices, so you never know who's behind the screen and
Right?
who's the voice of a lot of characters that we love.
Well, that's my fun fact, my contribution to potentially useless knowledge for you and the listeners this week, Joey. But what's your high low buffalo?
Oh yeah, I'll jump into mine. So my high is I had a great experience at UKG Connections. It's my first conference, in-person conference since the whole pandemic and everything. So
Mhm.
that was fun to be back around familiar faces and folks that I call friends. It's great to learn about product and team and what they're building at UKG, and a lot of it informs the work that we do at Jumpstart by way of like,
Mhm.
well, what are leaders doing as far as best practices and great practices. So that was a lot of fun. And with that, I spoke twice. I have no lows either. I mean, it's the holidays. I just want to ride this wave of good vibes all the way through. And yeah, my buffalo though is about gingerbread houses and about gingerbread cookies because we're doing something with gingerbread cookies and our staff, our team party. And the first recorded recipe for gingerbread came from Greece in the year 2400 BC. So before modern civilization, folks were eating gingerbread cookies, and I was always curious about where that came up. So that's my high low buffalo, and let's go ahead and jump into our article of the week. Um, and while we were working,
Well, thanks for sharing your high low buffalo, Joey. It sounds like it was a wonderful time at UKG, and I look forward to chatting with you and learning more about your experience there, and what that means for our Jumpstart team in 2022. In terms of current events, there was an article that was in Forbes magazine last week. It was called 8 Tips to Create a Company Culture of Support and Collaboration. And I felt like this was such an important article to share with our podcast listeners, as well as those that check out our show on LinkedIn, because one of the uh, one of the items that we help our clients with the most is helping build the foundation for creating that rich company culture, Joey. So I felt like this was an article that I was able to agree with from top to bottom. And since there was 8 tips, I thought, why don't you and I take the time to go through each of them and talk a little bit about what they are, and kind of speak in a little bit of a greater detail. But I thought before we do, Joey, um, maybe we can kind of start by defining like what is company culture, because I feel like if you ask that question, you'd probably get a bunch of different answers, don't you think?
yeah, I'd agree, and it really depends on who you ask and
Mhm.
their perspective. So I'll go first. I think company culture is what everyone says about your organization, not just what you think to be true.
Mhm.
And so culture is your written and unwritten rules. It's things that get rewarded or get disciplined. It's
Mhm.
things that get ignored. It's things you celebrate. So culture has a lot to do with what we think it is, but also what's actually happening.
Right.
You might talk to an executive, and they believe that their culture is one thing, but
Hmm.
then when you talk to a line manager or a new hire or someone that's been there for a long time, they think the culture is incredibly different.
Hmm.
So I'll just start there. We're going to unpack it. But Summer, what do you think? How would you define workplace culture?
I would say it's exactly what you described, Joey, but just as we were mentioning, I think everybody has a slightly different take on it or how they would explain it or how they would articulate it. And it's actually, I think, a really great interview question to ask, potential candidates. Like, what does company culture mean to you? Because I don't think, I don't think it means the same to everybody. But for me, it's really um, the proper way to behave in your organization. It's, looking at what are those shared values, what are the shared beliefs, and you touched on, reinforcing those behaviors. And I totally agree that it's reinforcing those behaviors so that you can have, kind of that universal expectation and work to get everybody truly aligned. Um, and, in terms of like why it is important, I mean, Joey, when I think about some of the core beliefs and values of the organizations that we work with, they are all companies that want to put their team first. They want to put their people first. And so when we talk about how to create a company culture of support and collaboration, putting your people first is truly what I call the secret sauce to success.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. We're going to jump into this list, but we've got time so we can unpack a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um, I was having a conversation this week with a client, and they had a really tough decision to make. And I was like, well, what do your values say?
Hmm.
Because you always want in an ideal scenario, you want your values to inform culture, and you want your values to inform the way you operate in a company.
Hmm.
And so we went on the company website because the values are there,
Right.
and I just marched through the values that were on the page,
Hmm.
and it was abundantly clear, what decision to make and why to make it, because driven by values, that's how you can have like a consistent
Hmm.
workplace culture. So that's a fun story, but
Hmm.
it's all in progress. So you'll have to stay tuned for future episodes to see if we comment on how it's going. But with all that to be said is that culture is incredibly important, and you want to build a
Hmm.
great one.
Hmm.
A great one has consistency, like Summer said. So uh, there are 8 things on this list. Do you want to take the first one, or you want me to take the first one?
Why don't you take the first one, Joey? I'll take number two.
All right. So the first one is start by establishing values. And Summer's probably laughing because she knew that was there. So I basically teed it up. But when you start with shared values, that's the framework of how decisions are made in your company. That's the framework for what you all agree to be true. It's the framework for the North Star that you're pursuing. And so you want to have those values, and you want to be able to share those values with your team and have them circulate. Um, in this meeting that I had with the client, I was telling them, every time you're in front of your team members, you should find a way to interject your values. So
Hmm.
whether it's celebrating something that was values driven, or coming to a decision and unpacking how the decision was made in light of values, because that's like going to make sure everyone understands that the values are important.
Hmm.
Uh, and otherwise, they just become something that is they just become something that's on the wall, or a
Right.
poster you walk by, or
Hmm.
something in a handbook that you just gloss over.
Hmm.
So you want to start with shared values and work those into your company. uh,
Hmm.
what do you think, or you want to tee up the next one?
Well, Joey, I I wanted to comment on one of the items that you said because it is, when you drill down into values, you explained how when you were talking to a client and you were forced with a difficult decision, that you went back to the company's values and then kind of evaluated the situation against it. And that's truly, when I think about just the very early stages of forming values, that's the way that they come about. And so when you think about how they play out in your day to day, and if you are adhering to your values, then yes, you're going to be asking yourself, for every business decision you make, does this align with our values? And so it was pretty neat for me to hear that that was the approach that you took. I think that's the right approach, and what I would recommend that we do, for all business decisions, right? So making sure that there is that alignment.
Definitely.
So, taking us directly into number two, on this list, it's incentivizing the right actions. And I love this one because this was a lesson that I learned very early on from one of my great mentors. And I saw it play out in real life. And, really what the article touches on is incentivizing people. For doing the right thing that is supportive of team culture, not individual culture. So, in the article, just kind of sum it up, they talk about, if somebody is praised for, really grinding on a project and doing it all themselves, like that doesn't set up a collaborative, supportive culture. But for example, like if somebody was given praise or even potentially a bonus because maybe they took initiative to put together something that added a lot of value for new hires, then that's indicative of behavior that is supportive of the greater group. And those are the type of behaviors that companies want to reward. And by reward, Joey, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to give them something tangible, but to make sure that the employee knows that that behavior is encouraged and that it supports keeping that culture alive and growing it, to create the best work environment possible.
Yeah, managing people is a very tough task, and um, you make it a lot easier on yourself when you put the things in front of people that you want them to accomplish,
Hmm.
and you make it very clear why it's important. So I'm
Hmm.
all about incentivizing the right results. Um, an example of that might be, you know, in performance management, right? When you're setting your rubric of what are you grading people on?
Hmm.
um, because a lot of us we're competitive, we're driven, we want and we want to hit our marks. So put the right behaviors in there that you want
Hmm.
people to have, and grade people throughout the year against that. So
Hmm.
that's an example. So the third thing that's on the list is foster trust and psychological safety.
Hmm.
And basically, trust is really, do you have a relationship with someone that what you give, you expect to get. Uh,
Hmm.
Without going to a Webster's definition, mine is basically, can you expect them to do what you ask them to do, and can you expect them to cover you if
Hmm.
something goes wrong? And then psychological safety is really, does a person feel comfortable being their full self
Hmm.
and being embraced wherever that may be? In this context, we're talking about work.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I want to highlight though about psychological safety and trust is that doesn't mean that your work environment is absent of conflict and disagreement.
Hmm.
It could be easy to misconstrue that a bit, to think that um, oh, we all get along nicely, no one complains, we're a family, quote unquote.
Hmm.
But those could actually be harmful if there is in fact disagreement.
Hmm.
So companies that have psychological safety and have trust know that they can disagree in a healthy way, um, and realize that, hey, these conversations make us stronger, and we honor each person at the table, and make sure that they are heard. And if we can't ultimately all agree, then just making sure that we figure out what we need to do to get some consensus and move forward. Um, let's kind of just rattle off the next ones because I want to save some time for our big consultants corner question because it's a good one. So Summer, take run off the rest of the list.
All right. Sounds good, Joey. Gosh, I was thinking we probably could have done either an extended episode or broken this episode into two because there's so much to cover. But number 4 on the list is creating a system for giving praise to peers. And I'm a huge advocate of this. We do it internally at Jumpstart. If clients that we're working with aren't currently doing it, it's highly recommended to do. It's not difficult. Internally at Jumpstart, um, for those of you listening, we have a Slack channel that's called Wins and Wisdom. And that channel is a really great place to just drop in a win that you either had with a client or a win that you had that you observed from one of your team members. And it's really just that, really easy way to give praise to peers. Recently, we've had a lot of wins, and what I'm noticing is it's very much a snowball effect. Like once they start going, then we're all celebrating, and I think everybody loves to be recognized when they do something great. It's such an easy way to do. Number 5 is aligning KPIs to promote support. And so, Joy, I feel like in some of the other items that we already discussed, we touched on this a little bit, but in the Forbes article, they talk about making sure your KPIs are aligned and that people are incentivized to help each other. I think that we did cover that a little bit in some of the prior discussion. So I'll move on down to number 6, and that is a topic we've discussed quite a bit before, and that's establishing a better work-life balance. That's a topic that I feel like comes up almost every day. And the article talks about don't try to force your company culture to be more supportive because it will totally feel fake.
Yeah.
But help limit stress and pressure, make it easier for people to be supportive of the culture, and it will develop just naturally. And for every workplace, for every team member, work-life balance has a different definition. And I don't think that you have to force like a one size fits all. Now, if you're a small business, one of the great things you can do is get to know your team members and, what that looks like for them. Number 7's model the right tone. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. It's demonstrate the behavior that you want your team and you want, you want your employees to replicate and reward that behavior. Number 8's focus on empathy and communication. We're all humans. And I think that taking the time to make sure people know that they're valued and really standing by them when it's their moments of need. Um, People feel supported too when they're listened to, when they know that you're listening to them and they see you taking action based on those discussions. So I went through the last few super fast, Joey, but great article by Forbes. Again, it's called 8
Definitely.
Tips to Create a Company Culture of Support and Collaboration. Now,
Yeah.
without further ado, Joey, can we dive right into Consultants Corner? Because this is a good one today.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And if you're following along on LinkedIn, I dropped the article in the chat, but we'll tag the article in show notes. But we're gonna go into Consultants Corner, and the thing about Consultants Corner that I love the most is it's real topics being tackled by real HR pros. Sometimes these have to do with companies that we're working with, and then other times it's uh, companies that you are working at and working in.
Mhm.
And if you have a topic that you want us to cover or a scenario that you want us to cover, You can email us at hello@jumpstart-hr.com, and we'll be glad to tackle your topic on an upcoming episode. This episode's topic is the reason for the title of our show today, and it's called "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Boss?" I want to read to you the note that came in uh, to us. It says, I work for a university and have a boss who is tenured faculty and violates some of the HR policies. I've asked HR directly about the topic in question to confirm that what's happening is wrong. And I've learned that if I say something and my boss gets fired, my offsite facility will likely get shut down. I've asked the other employees, and they all say to just go along with it because everyone is afraid of the boss.
Mm.
Well, Summer, we have answered the question: Who's afraid of the big bad boss? Sounds like everybody is. Um, but this one's tough, right? You're
Mhm.
caught in a rock and a hard place of doing what you believe to be ethical, and then
Mhm.
doing what you believe will, to be honest, keep some jobs open,
Mhm.
right? Because
Right.
it sounds like a tricky spot where if this person leaves, then these jobs may either be gone or repurposed or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So that's a tough one. That's a tough one. What do
It's
you
it
think?
def yeah, it's definitely a tough one, Joey, and, I think, while I'm not super familiar myself with, with the university settings, certainly I've heard the word tenured, and I know, in simple terms that it's very, very difficult for somebody who is tenured, to be let go, and I suspect that that has something to do with, perhaps why some of this behavior has been allowed to go on as long as it has. Um, that's just kind of my suspicion, and it is really unfortunate because I think, if this individual is listening, uh, they really have to make the decision as to, is this, whatever item is being violated, it does it go against their moral compass,
Hmm.
and how does that impact their overall work happiness? Because, we talk so much about the importance of, being at an organization that you're aligned with their culture, with their values. And if there's that disconnect, then every day is going to be unhappy, Joey. So I feel like, in this situation, the employees will really have to self reflect and decide, like, is this a big deal to me or not?
Yep.
And if it's going to be a continued item that's going to impact their happiness, they may need to decide to potentially move on to a different organization where they can be more happy. Yeah, I think the part that, kind of bums me out the most in reading about this situation is that, the employees don't feel like they have anywhere to go to voice their concerns, that they truly feel trapped, and that's got to be, um, I can't even imagine. It's got to be a really terrible feeling.
Yeah, I mean it's tough all around because
Mhm.
I also hear I've gone to HR, but I don't hear what the remedy was.
Mhm.
um, if there's any kind of intervention that can be done, if the tenured faculty could somehow turn around.
Mhm.
So if we're answering this from the perspective of the employee that sent
Mhm.
this in,
Mhm.
um, I'm like you, evaluate if it's worth the struggle.
Mhm.
Because one unfortunate thing that I've realized is that some companies are comfortable with chaos, and
Mhm.
some people are comfortable with chaos. And you have to decide, is this an organization where we're willing to rally around change? Or
Mhm.
is this a place where I just need to exit
Mhm.
gracefully and set myself up to land somewhere else that I might thrive a little better.
Right.
Um,
Right. I think, Joey, on the other side, from the HR perspective, if I was, on the HR team and this individual came and started asking questions, I think it's also a great example of when As HR professionals, we're approached with a question. There is 99% of the time more to it than the question that's being asked,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not like, as much as I'd like to think that, team members see us as warm and welcoming, they're going to come and spill all of their, all of their concerns with us. It's just, it doesn't typically happen. So when they're bringing forth a question and asking about something, making sure to as appropriate, dive in and ask more questions to understand, like, well, why is this question being asked? Like, what else is going on here that may be resulting in this question coming to me? And I think you'll be really surprised that when you can build the trust and ask the questions and gain that additional information from your team, that you will start to uncover that there are issues that may not necessarily be just initially brought forward as the concern. They'll come in the form of a question that is much more discreet.
Yeah, we could go on and on about this one. What I've seen is, to your point, people will lead with that issue or concern that they believe will get their foot in the door,
Mhm,
and then there's probably a whole host of issues that are
mhm,
happening behind that issue
right.
that they didn't feel comfortable bringing up.
Mhm.
So yeah, advice for the listener. Should they stay? Should they go? Should they be a change agent? Should they speak their piece? What do you think?
I have to go back to what I started to say a little bit earlier, Joey, is I think it's a personal decision because everybody has a different definition of what work happiness looks like to them, a different moral compass, and what's okay and not okay. So I think if this individual digs deep and they're like, going to work each day and not really happy, that's the answer, Joey. If you're not happy, it's okay to move on because your happiness is out there. You just need to open the door and be willing to go search for it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think this is a personal decision. It'd be tough to prescribe one course of action versus the other.
Hmm.
And I'd love to hear more about what rules this person's breaking. Um, I think if it's harassment,
Hmm.
absolutely you have to speak up.
Hmm.
But if it's like turning in their timesheets late,
Hmm.
maybe there's some things that not as urgent on the spectrum. Um,
Right.
so it depends. It really does depend. What a difficult time of
Hmm.
year to have this issue. But
Hmm.
the new year is full of reflection and new things, and so maybe this listener will find a new role or find new happiness in their role.
I agree, Joey, and I certainly hope that the listener will reach out and either share an update or more details so we could potentially discuss it on a future episode. But just want to remind everyone that if you have a question or a situation that you'd like us to weigh in on, I'd encourage you to go ahead and send it on in. Joey, did you share our email earlier?
Yep, it's hello@jumpstart-hr.com.
Awesome. Great.
All
Well,
right.
before we go, Joey, did you have any parting thoughts?
I just want to say, stay safe out there, whether you're traveling or staying home, or if you have folks coming over. We're in some crazy times, so all I can
Mhm.
just say is be well, and hope you have a great Christmas, and I hope you're celebrating a good holiday season.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joey. We'll see you again next week.
All right, see you next week. And if you missed other episodes, catch us on LinkedIn and wherever you get your other podcasts, because we're right there too. See ya.
See you guys. Thank you.